Welcome to A Gentleman's Review. I'm Art Hampton. I'm your host, bringing you news that the mainstream propaganda does not. And today I have Rob Harris with me. He is the most conservative state representative in the state of South Carolina, the only one that has a 100% that I know of. I might be one or two others, but maybe
others,
not.
Yeah.
So that's still, he's the most conservative representative in the state of South Carolina. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and I'll gladly claim that title of most conservative legislator. I think I am. No one's going to get to the right of me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Rob. You got how many kids?
Yeah, I'm a father of 10 children and grandfather to 10's on the way as well. And so I'm a operating room nurse by trade. I'm probably the only legislator in South Carolina legislature that punches a clock when he goes to work. And that's not saying he shouldn't own a business or be a lawyer or something like that, but it is tricky. But it is a working man's perspective of what goes on in the state legislature, and I'm proud of that.
Well, excellent. So,
I'm also part of the South Carolina Freedom Caucus. I should have mentioned that right away too. So there's that little rabble that has caused trouble down there at South Carolina Freedom at the State House, and I'm proud to be part of that as well.
And a member of the John Birch Society.
Yes, sir.
So, one of the things that concerns me is people moving forward from 2020. They always talk about election integrity. But it doesn't look like there's been much change in the elections from 2020 to 2024. It just seems like everybody was watching them. Is that correct? There hasn't been much change in that. And that seems to be a problem,
Correct.
Is it not?
Yeah, it is. It's a big problem. I mean, in South Carolina in 2022, before I got into office, as you probably know, they passed some election, quote unquote, election integrity, which just basically codified early voting and some other things that are not so great, in my opinion, and going actually in the wrong direction. So, yeah, not much has changed. And I have been an election integrity advocate from the get go. I won my primary in 2022 and started serving in 2023, of course, and filed several election integrity bills, hand count audits, things like that. And have done the same thing as this year too. But yeah, nothing much has changed. I've had to fight to try to get hearings for my bills, myself and the folks from SESafeelections.org, and we've been doing a lot of work for it. But they don't want to hear it. They don't. They like it the way things are. A couple bills had come up from the Senate and one from the House. I think that wanted to. A couple things came up from the Senate and some from the House. A couple bills that had to do with like primaries and or the way we count and push up voting data to the state, the SEC, and I had to be on guard and ready to put amendments up and try to tag on some election integrity stuff to those bills in the process. That's the only way. That's the only way you're going to get anything accomplished when you're one of the Freedom Caucus folks and the real conservatives, because they just keep you at arm's length. So you have to be creative about the way you look at bills that are coming down matriculating through committee and see if there aren't ways that you can amend them to add concepts, if you will, that will help move it in the right direction. But as far as the actual bills that I file, they don't want to give them a hearing. So we can talk about why that is when we talk about the speaker, perhaps.
So virtually nothing's happened. We've been trying to do some different things on the state level. Is there anything that we can do on the local level to change that? What I've seen is there's a couple counties in South Carolina and one or two counties in Georgia that are still dry counties. And what that tells me, and what I mean by dry county, is they're not allowed to buy or sell alcohol in the county. It's a county ordinance. And so if we can take a stand like that on, let's say, alcohol, why can't we take a stand like that on, let's say, the machines, and put a county ban on Dominion voting machines, ES&S, and just say, hey, we're going to count these things by hand and do it from the county level?
Yeah, I don't know if that would fly legally with the way the law is with the state election commission. I know they should. I'm all for more local, autonomy with that. But there is a level of, and it's that proves that goes across different um, bills and different concepts, different topics, I should say. When you're talking about the state, then the Constitution is our state constitution is crafted in a way that really does give the legislature an awful lot of power. I think we're the most powerful state legislator, if you will, in the whole nation. And they really, a lot of the local power is just granted, if you will, from the state legislature. So, I'm not really sure about that. What local counties could probably try to do, except clearly they could organize and be a voice by being involved in taking, maybe getting control of the GOP or something like that, or just poll watching. My whole family's done that. In fact, in the 2023 general election, the 2022 general election, I didn't have an opponent. My family and I just watched the polls. We covered all the precincts in my district. We had poll watchers there, and actually, I found out that half the let's see, 40% of the precincts did not have seals on the ballot tabulators. That's not okay. When I called the local board of elections director and said, "Hey, these people," like I talked to the clerk, of course, super nice, but they didn't. They wouldn't put the seals on, even after I told them. I mean, not that I'm a candidate; it's just wrong. But I was the candidate, of course. And I've worked the polls. I've worked them myself. I know it's a long day. But I said, hey, these seals on tabulators. They wouldn't do it. I had to call and get them to force them to put seals on. And that's breaking the law. I mean, that doesn't exactly answer your question, maybe, but people could get active at a local level and really stir things up and put the attention on all these bad practices.
Absolutely. Evil loves darkness, but shining a light on it, they all scatter like cockroaches, seems
Sure.
like. But so one thing that I've found is, and it took a little bit to figure this out. And now listen to my wording here. Um, Installed officials do not want to buck the system that installed them. Is that kind
Sure.
of what we're dealing with? These people are being installed, they're not being elected, and so they're not going to do anything about it. I mean, I
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, well, but for instance, they are installed, and again, at a county level, the legislators, the delegation from that county, appoints or elects. They elect them. Basically, there's a pool of people. They put their applications in for local, jobs like board of elections chairman or things like that, or to be on the board of elections. And there's like one applicant. There's not really an election. We just affirm them because there's no competition hardly. And that's true for all kind of positions, but they are appointed, a lot of them by important positions by the legislature, the delegation there. And that's a ripe opportunity for people to get off the couch and stand up for things. Again, another board of elections position came up last meeting I was at, and there's only one applicant. Nobody even vied for it. So I mean,
Wow.
people have got to get engaged. You got to get your hands on the steering wheel. That's what I did. So
Well, that's good. One thing that I noticed, especially in South Carolina here, we have a Republican supermajority. I think it was, 88% or something like that, 89%.
we have 88 or so. Yeah, actually, probably a couple more than that. Right, of the 124 legislators in the House are Republicans. Yes.
So, with a Republican supermajority, what I've found is, and in most counties, with the exception of like Columbia, Charleston, there is no Democratic presence for the most part. Whoever wins the Republican primary wins. And a lot of times they run unopposed. I know the two reps in my county, Brian Lawson and Moss, they didn't in the primary. They didn't really have any any opposition, and that's kind of concerning to me because when, especially someone that is not as principled as you are, when they run unopposed, especially on the Republican side, they do whatever they want to do. Because what are you going to do? Vote for nobody? Vote no confidence, I guess. I don't know. So they get really cushy, and that's concerning because the only real power that the electorate has over, or the constituents have over the people that they elect, is to not vote for them. And if that isn't an option, then they do whatever they want to do, just follow along, and they get handled. I mean, it's interesting. I've got to where I don't even argue with elected officials most times, just simply because they've had smooth talkers talk them into this, and they know the talking points, and they're just so smooth, and I just don't want to deal with that. It's just, here, this is right because of this, this, and this. This is wrong because of this, this, and this. I don't want to hear you silver tongue. I mean, I don't, you fork tongue, really, and
Yep.
don't deal with it. And I counsel a lot of people not to do that, especially if you're just average Joe voter trying to direct your elector, the legislators, to the way that you want them to vote to represent you, because you're a representative. I mean, it's in your title. I simply say, if you want to represent me, vote this way, and leave it at that. He can't argue with that. He can't silver tongue his way out of that. It's, well, there it is. And I don't know. Have you seen a lot of that handling going on in Columbia at the Capitol?
Yeah, well, so I mean, handling, when you mean like how they get away with doing one thing when they tell the voters something else? Is that what you mean?
Well, part of it, but just like when you get to D.C., Thomas Massey talked about this. When you get to D.C., let's say you're a congressman, you get a handler. You get, oh, this guy, he's so great. He knows foreign affairs. He knows this. He's been around a long time.
Sure.
You listen to him. He's going to counsel you to do the right thing in this. And then, oh, this guy here, he's the health expert. You listen to him on health things, and he's going to lead you the right way. Because on that level, you really don't read the bills, and quite frankly, on the state level, a lot of the legislators don't read the bills. The person who does read the bill is the guy in the back who's the researcher that makes a synopsis of the bill and then hands it to his boss, and then his boss, the legislator, reads it and goes, okay, I'm gonna vote this way or this way.
Sure.
And they have these handlers going, oh, here's my synopsis of it. Here's what it is. This, you need to vote this way, and they get handled just like a dog.
Sure. Well, we of course we have majority leaders and whips and things like that, and they know, the establishment knows who their loyal people are, and they send them out to talk to new legislators, new freshmen and things like that, and they can pretty much assess pretty. When Merle Smith called me, it's funny looking back. When he called me, the one conversation we had, that was it. He called me in the summer after I'd won the primary, just to say hi, and I said, I'm in this. I wasn't part of the Freedom Caucus, and I was like, I mean, I wasn't even. They didn't run on being the Freedom Caucus. They just ran to do the right thing. But he, I just told him. I said, I'm not coming down there to play. I said, we're losing our country or something like that. So he pretty much knew where I was at with things, and nobody ever bothered with me. But it's true, other freshmen who are kind of, seem open to, what leadership says, if they get groomed or whatever you want to call it, and they just tell them. And there's a whole process by which, if you don't do what the speaker wants and you're not on board with things are not going to go well for you in your next race, or even in your life as a legislator, because you're not going to get your committee, even if you don't want to get all. If you just want to be kind of status quo thing, you're not going to get any of your bills heard or anything like that if you don't comply with what they do. If you're more adventurous, or you want to get move up the ladder, you want to be a committee chair or something, like that, you are going to do what the leadership says. And I'm saying leadership. Merle Smith is the head of the snake, if you will. And so it all stems from him. He has final say on everything, Merle Smith. And so let's just be honest about that. So you won't get a committee assignment that you like. You won't get your bills heard. Some of these, we have the highest percentage of lawyer legislators in any state except New York State. Okay, the highest percentage of lawyer legislators of any other
Wow.
state, and so if a lot of those lawyers, they want to be judges one day, and they do, or they're going to be lobbyists someday. They're going to be a trustee of one of these colleges that we give all these millions of dollars to. So they want to do that after they do their little stint in the legislature. And if they don't comply, they are ruining their pathway forward to those goals. And then, of course, you'll just get railroaded in all their ways if you don't do what they say. So there's lots of reasons to comply with what leadership wants when you're there. And so to answer your question, yeah, day one you get there. Hey, everybody's doing this. Oh, don't listen to those crazies over there, Freedom Caucus or whatever. They're not going to get their bills, or they're not going to get anywhere. If you want to go somewhere here or get what you need for your constituents, your people, and get the money. We talk about earmarks, of course. You're not going to get a dime of money for your county or your district rather if you don't vote the way they want. It's like, hey, I want some new lights from our ball stadium or whatever. Okay, sounds good, but if you don't vote the way they want you to, you're not getting nothing. So it's the currency corruption, and there's those ways you said they handle them. If you want to call that handling, I guess, but there is definitely there's like some mores down there with them that this is the way we do things, and if you want to go anywhere and get what you need from this legislator job, you're going to do what we say.
Wow. So it's more authoritative here, I guess. Um, and it's very interesting. I There were several groups that we organized in Georgia to get together. I don't know, Paper Please, Voter GA, John Birch Society, GRA was there. Several people, and we went to the State House in Atlanta to talk about election integrity a few months back,
Mm.
and we met with some legislators and talked to them, and it's very interesting. I thought they were going to come out and we're going to show them the evidence. Here's voter fraud. I thought they were going to come out and say, well, no, that's not real fraud, or just deny it outright. They didn't deny it. They did not deny any of it. Now, I think the evidence at this point is irrefutable. There was so much evidence of voter fraud. We've organized several teams in some of the southeastern states to go out and knock on doors. You supposedly voted in 2022. Are you John Doe? Well, no, I bought the house from John Doe 10 years ago, or stuff like that. And of the doors that we've knocked on, we have found fraud anywhere from 33% to 50 or 60% of the doors that we knock on that actually come to the door. And I'm thinking 60% of the doors that you knocked on, there was fraud, or at the lowest 33%. And there's some telltale things that just doesn't set right. For example, if you have supposedly 6 or 8 people living in the same house, and there's 3 different last names, well, let's go knock on that door and see who's there. And 9 times out of 10, the different last names are the people that's lived there 10 years ago and 5 years ago, and they're all voting still. And that's just one of the many ways that we don't even have control of our own
Voter lists are
voter
garbage.
list. Yeah.
They're terrible. Yeah. In fact, before I ever ran for office, with the help of SCSafeElections.org, we canvassed the 2020 election results. We actually had what they do with some of this fractal analysis, but we had the property records, and we went out to verify. We had property records and voter records. We had to buy them, and we compared them. They're same thing. You didn't know, it's just me and my wife here. Well, do you know this person, that person, that person? Nope. They all successfully used their house to vote from. The people are like, no way, it's true. And we had affidavits, thousands. I think we collected over 11,000 affidavits proving that people, even, the same old thing, like, abandoned lots, ATM machines, that kind of thing that you hear about. But we actually knocked on doors, knocked on thousands of doors before I ever ran for office, and we did the exact same thing. That's why I know the voter rolls are jacked up. And we handed them all into SLED. We offered, we had a forum to offer it to see, the governor. Everybody was invited to come to a big, reveal about all our findings. It was crickets. Nobody showed up, So Josiah Magnuson did, and a couple others. But it's true. I did the exact same thing, and I think Liz Harris is the name. She did an exhaustive canvass out in Arizona, I think it was, shortly after the election of 2020. So we kind of followed that model. It's bad for sure.
Absolutely. Do you still have those affidavits and all that information?
I could get them.
You could get it.
We handed them all over to SLED. Big binder after binder after binder. Me and my daughter, we both became notaries. We were signing all our volunteers. I was a co-captain for this county. Did across 8 counties in South Carolina. It wasn't exhaustive, but we did what we could in the amount of time we have. It was, and just in Spartanburg County alone, we have over 850 affidavits just in the few weeks that we did this with a team of 20. So
wow. Well, there's a strategy that I've seen work in a few other places, and like I said, we'll get offline and talk about that and what to do with those things that I've seen work, and it takes a little bit of time. But and so 800 affidavits in Spartanburg, that's a lot of fraud, a lot of fraudulent votes. And it was interesting. I saw the results of the presidential election in South Carolina, and it was bluer than I expected it to be. There was a lot more blue counties in South Carolina. I mean, we're supposed to have this supermajority, and there's a lot of blue things in this. And I'm not trying to pit Democrat and Republican, but that just, to me, it was shocking because here, everybody's a Republican, everybody's a Christian, and you got Rhino. We had to differentiate between the Rhinos and the conservative people, and just outright blue districts. Did you see that?
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think we just, I think we outvoted the cheat this time. I mean, people just came out and he won the popular vote. I think he just simply outvoted the cheating. I'm not saying cheating's still going on, I'm sure, even in South Carolina. So, maybe some of those blue counties or wherever areas you saw, maybe they weren't really as blue as you thought, in my personal opinion. But, we need to unfettered access to the voter rolls. They need to be cleaned up badly. I have a bill. It's called the SAVE Act this time. Sorry, I had a little cold. Secure and Verifiable Elections Act, and it will mandates and kind of lays out how the state should keep track of the voter rolls, make them transparent. All these inactive voters that they just activate when they need them. The electronic poll books. It's how. I mean, I know a lot of listeners probably know already how the ways they cheat with these electronic poll books. They're connected to the internet. They admit it. They say they're secure, but then they know who's come out to vote, and then they look at the vote. Oh, we need some of these inactive voters to be active now, and who knows what might happen behind the scenes. It's just not transparent, and that's not okay.
And I want to touch on this because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, we need to get out and vote early, and vote early, and vote early, and yada yada yada." And I'm thinking, no, you don't vote early because they're going to cheat, and it's like an auction. The earlier you bid, the more time it gives everybody else to just cheat more. If you vote in the 11th hour, it gives them much less time to cheat, and they got to do things like they did in the 2020 election. Let's stop counting and reset the system and do this, that, and the other, and then it makes it apparently obvious. So when you're bidding, like on something, you want to vote at the very last minute so that no one else has a time to outbid you. And is that not a correct assessment of what's going on?
For sure. And if people probably don't realize this, but there was a bill that came through. I think the bill number was that's from the Senate was 406 that came through that was called early voting ballots. And what it wanted to do, it wanted to let starting at 7 a.m. on election day, it wanted to be able to take all the tallies from the early voting period and send them up the line to the SEC. Like they wanted all the numbers instead of waiting until the end of the night and tally all the votes together on election day. They wanted to let then Josh Kimbrell from District 11 here, Senator Josh Kimbrell, supported that, and so yeah, I'm pretty sure he was on that. No. Yes, the first time he was. Second time he wasn't. I'll get to that, but yeah, the first time he was, and so anyways, they wanted to be able to let it, and I had 11 or 12 amendments on that bill when it came over, and it pushed to the end of the 2023 year, the end of the session. They were going to vote on it, and they ended up because I don't know what they're afraid of, but they kept kicking it back in the calendar, and I had all my amendments for election integrity attached to that bill, and they're like, it's just a do nothing bill. It would have went right under everybody's radar, but I saw what it was doing, and I put amendments on it, and they did not want to slog through all those really good amendments that were germane to the bill. They had a tough time ruling those non-germane. And so I think I just hear the head of the I think Constitutional Laws Committee, Jordan, just recommitted it to committee. That basically killed it right at the end of the session. And then end of last year, 2024, end of the session this time, it came back from the Senate. Campson's name was on it, and it came back, and it was attached to this municipal bill that had something to do with some of these municipal elections like drag on and on and on, and I hate that. And when it came up standalone, I voted for that, but they tagged this early voting concept onto that bill at the last minute. It literally was 10 minutes to 5 when right after Josiah Magnuson killed the health czar bill, a few minutes later, the very last piece of legislation we dealt with, it came back from there. It needed unanimous consent to be dealt with, and I stood up and objected because they tacked that early voting nonsense back onto that. And they try to sneak it through. So, if you're not watching, so yes, I guess I got off on a tangent about the drama of that, but early voting is a bad idea. I know it's popular, but it's somewhat popular. But if they get those numbers, just like how many times do officials leak information? Those numbers are going to get leaked. They're like, so and so, the Democrat has it in the bag. Don't even bother coming out and voting. That's what's going to happen. I'm convinced of it. So call me crazy, but it's no good. So yeah. So my SAVE Act says 1 day of elections. The early voting's done. No machines. Hand marked, hand counted ballots. Paper poll books. Every citizen, everybody gets ID'd, citizenship, all that stuff. And even reduces some of the frivolous, unnecessary reasons to have excuses for absentee ballots, and makes voting a holiday. So what could be better than that? We need 1 day of voting. That's what. So yeah, the early voting is just a way, like you described with the auction. It's just the information is going to get out, and I could give you another example of that. In fact, the way we pick judges in this state, not to get off on another rabbit trail, but what they do is when we elect the judges, and what they do a couple weeks ahead is they start counting. It's like early voting, and they go around, they survey us. Hey, are you going to support this one? Are you going to support that one? And they count it up, and then they go to the other judge, and there's 3 of them. And they say, hey, we don't think you have the numbers to win. And so what you watch what happens. They resign, they bow out of the race, and now it's down to 2. Then they start recounting again. And it's all before the election, right? Because we elect them. So before the election happens, they go around to every desk. They ask me, I'm like, I'm not taking part in that. I'll vote when the day comes. So, but they count, and then they tell the next guy, looks like you don't have the votes for it. And then by the time it gets to voting, look how many times. There's very few races for judges that actually come to the floor of the House and Senate where we have to pick between 2 people. It's almost always whittled down to 1, and that's exactly what's going to happen with early voting if we let these numbers out. It's the same thing.
Indeed. Well, we're out of time, but I would like to have you come back to talk a little bit more about the corruption that's going on in South Carolina with the establishment. We can touch on picking judges. The health czar bill is a very interesting topic, and maybe Josh Kimbrell folding on his vote for what was it, Scout
Zimmerman.
Motors. Giving
right.
them $1.29 billion in redistribution of wealth. But thanks for coming on to the show. And, as always, please like, share, and subscribe if you like this. This is the Gentleman's Review, bringing you news that the mainstream propaganda does not address. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.